Humanity is as dangerously fascinating as they are fascinatingly dangerous. Their very existence represents one of the most remarkable anomalies in our galactic catalogue of inhabited worlds. Earth, humanity's homeworld, defies every conventional model of planetary habitability that our xenobiologists had developed over millennia of galactic exploration. The planet's capacity to sustain life, let alone complex, intelligent life, remains a subject of intense academic debate to this day. Coming from a world where the very ground beneath their feet attempts to kill them through seismic activity, where the atmosphere regularly produces devastating storm systems, and where the gravitational pull is nearly twice that of most civilized worlds, humans immediately reveal themselves to be freakishly strong compared to the majority of the galactic community. Most inhabited worlds in our galaxy originated from planets with significantly smaller mass and, by extension, much weaker gravitational fields. The atmospheric compositions of these worlds tend toward the gentle and predictable. Weather patterns, while not always completely foreseeable, rarely reach the catastrophic extremes that humans consider seasonal storms. Environmental conditions would shift gradually depending on planetary position and local geography, but they remain generally consistent. Warmer tropical climates toward regions receiving more stellar radiation, and cooler tundra-like conditions at the poles. Never in our recorded history have we encountered such a bizarre planet as Earth. The fact that any life existed above the planet's turbulent oceans was remarkable in its own right. That this life managed to colonize the landmasses, regions constantly reshaped by tectonic violence, was extraordinary. That intelligent life not only survived but thrived in such conditions was beyond our theoretical frameworks entirely. However unlikely it seemed, Earth had indeed produced intelligent life. Humanity, having evolved in and adapted to what any rational being would consider a relative hellscape, which they then proceeded to make demonstrably worse through their industrial activities, proved capable of dominating virtually any other species in the galaxy in terms of raw physical capability. This advantage extended beyond mass strength. Humans survive on atmospheric oxygen concentrations that would leave most species gasping for breath. They can tolerate what the Galactic Health Authority classifies as harmful chemical compounds in their respiratory systems far more effectively than virtually any other known intelligent species. Their temperature tolerance ranges span conditions that would be lethal to most galactic citizens. However, raw physical prowess alone would not have made them a significant concern for species with more advanced technology or superior intelligence. The galaxy has its share of what we diplomatically term strength-focused civilizations, bulky, powerful species that manage to thrive primarily through sheer physical dominance. In rare cases, these civilizations barely achieve spaceflight capability, and in even rarer instances, they reach interstellar travel only with substantial outside assistance. These physically dominant species, while representing the strongest creatures in the known universe, pose manageable diplomatic and military challenges due to their limited intellectual capabilities. Their straightforward nature made them predictable, especially in large-scale conflicts where superior technology and tactical planning could overcome brute force. Humanity, however, possessed no such convenient limitation. While humanity wasn't quite the most intelligent species in the galaxy, and considering their technological disadvantage upon discovery, they were certainly not the most advanced. Their intellectual capabilities range from average to notably above average. For a species possessing such extraordinary physical attributes, this level of intelligence was deeply concerning to the Galactic Council's Xenopsychology Committee. # the discovery. Setting aside the more peculiar aspects of human civilization, such as their combustion of ancient biological matter for energy production, and their species' apparently inherent warlike tendencies, humanity remained isolated to Earth for the vast majority of their development. Earth itself occupied a highly isolated position within a region of the galaxy that our stellar cartographers had originally classified as having minimal to negligible probability of developing life, particularly intelligent life. This region, designated the lifeless cluster in our databases, contained numerous planets theoretically capable of supporting colonization and settlement, but appeared to lack the specific combination of factors necessary for indigenous life development. Humanity likely spent most of their evolutionary and early civilizational history speculating whether other intelligent life existed in the universe, completely unaware that thousands of thriving civilizations existed beyond their perception. Humanity's discovery was, in one sense, entirely accidental. The survey mission hadn't specifically expected to encounter life in their designated research area. However, the fundamental purpose of the expedition was indeed to search for signs of life in regions previously deemed barren, so the discovery wasn't entirely unexpected. The mission had been dispatched to investigate the lifeless cluster, seeking to determine whether there were underlying reasons for the apparent absence of life-bearing worlds and, if possible, to prove our assumptions incorrect. The region showed promise for future colonization projects, but the lack of naturally occurring life raised questions about potential hidden hazards or unusual stellar conditions. Eventually, the research vessel Quantum Seeker operating under the Independent Research Collective's charter, began detecting signals emanating from within the cluster. The transmissions were primitive by galactic standards, electromagnetic radiation patterns that suggested early electronic communication technology, but they were undeniably artificial in origin. Following standard protocols, the research team decided to investigate the signal source. The trail led them to Earth, as mandated by the Vivanti Treaty, which established our protocols for contact with underdeveloped intelligent civilizations. Specific rules governed interactions with species that had not yet achieved interstellar travel capabilities. The survey ship took a distant orbital position, circling the planet just beyond the orbit of Earth's unusually large natural satellite. Earth's moon presented its own fascinating anomaly. One of the survey team members, through a combination of observational data and educated speculation, correctly hypothesized that this satellite had formed through a catastrophic collision between Earth and another planetary body during the early formation of the solar system. This theory, later confirmed through human geological records, explained both the moon's unusual size relative to its parent planet and certain peculiarities in Earth's rotational characteristics. As the research team conducted their preliminary observations, they began to comprehend the true scope of humanity's potential threat to galactic stability. If humanity ever achieved technological parity with the galactic community, their physical advantages and apparent intellectual capabilities could make them formidable competitors or dangerous adversaries. Initially, the survey team concerns seemed premature. Humanity had not yet achieved meaningful spaceflight capability. Their most advanced vehicles barely escaped their planet's substantial gravitational well, and their presence in space appeared limited to primitive artificial satellites. Unfortunately, as their observation period extended, the research team noticed concerning developments. First, they detected one artificial satellite, then another, then several more. The satellites displayed increasingly sophisticated design characteristics, suggesting rapid technological advancement. Most alarming of all, they eventually identified what appeared to be a permanent space station in Earth orbit, with clear evidence of human occupants conducting extended operations beyond their planetary surface. Not only had humanity successfully left their home planet, but they had established a permanent presence in space. More troubling still, the humans had detected the survey ship's presence almost immediately upon its arrival in the solar system. Humanity began transmitting directed signals toward the survey vessel. However, due to growing panic among the research team, what had been intended as a basic scientific survey had evolved into potential first contact with an unknown and potentially dangerous species. They departed the system before completing translation of the human communications. The debate. The research team returned to Galactic Council space with their disturbing findings about humanity. Much of the galactic community began sharing similar fears about the implications of human advancement. While the protocols established under the Vivanti Treaty remained applicable, humanity's achievement of spaceflight capabilities complicated the standard procedures considerably. The Galactic Council found itself engaged in extensive debates regarding appropriate responses. The fundamental ethical question remained clear. Humanity possessed the same inherent right as any other intelligent species to develop, advance, and eventually join the galactic community. However, there existed legitimate concerns that humanity might develop into an aggressively expansionist civilization. Many council members drew comparisons between humanity and the Homvar Empire, a militaristic species whose cultural foundation centered on warfare and conquest. Until the Homvar encountered superior opposition in the form of the United Galactic Community, they had satisfied their cultural need for conflict by engaging in constant internal warfare among their various nation-states and tribal groups. The concern was that humanity demonstrated similar patterns, a bloodthirsty civilization that actively sought warfare to such an extent that, lacking external enemies, they divided themselves into competing factions and fought devastating conflicts among themselves. The fear was that humanity would eventually unify and redirect their warlike nature against other species throughout the galaxy. The critical difference between the Homvar and humanity, in the Galactic Council's analysis, lay in their potential controllability. The Homvar had been successfully managed through a combination of diplomatic pressure, economic incentives, and the implicit threat of overwhelming military retaliation. While the Homvar still preferred violent solutions to diplomatic problems, and much of their diplomacy consisted of barely veiled intimidation, they had been integrated into the galactic community's power structures. Humanity, with their combination of physical superiority and intellectual capability, might prove impossible to control through conventional means. Some council members suggested immediate military intervention, terminating humanity while their technological capabilities remained primitive and manageable. This proposal generated intense ethical debates that continued for months, with the issue repeatedly delayed as various factions sought consensus. The Homvar Initiative. The Homvar Empire, having served as a primary example justifying potential preemptive action against humanity, became the most vocal supporter of immediate military intervention. Homvar leadership argued that allowing humanity to continue developing would inevitably result in a threat that would dwarf even their own imperial expansion. Growing impatient with the Council's endless deliberations and having never fully accepted the Council's authority over the military actions, the Homvar Empire decided to resolve the issue unilaterally. Without seeking Council approval, Homvar Command authorized the deployment of a Grand Destroyer escorted by a full fighter squadron, with orders to conduct what they euphemistically termed planetary sterilization of Earth. The mission parameters called for complete elimination of human civilization and the reduction of their technological capabilities by several centuries minimum. These ships never returned. Both impatient with the lack of communication and increasingly concerned about the fate of their forces, Homvar leadership escalated their response dramatically. They authorized the deployment of one of their motherships to complete the extermination mission. Motherships represented the largest and most powerful vessels in any galactic navy. Humans would later describe them as space aircraft carriers, though this comparison understates their true capabilities. These massive vessels typically measured equivalent in size to moderate-sized cities, serving as mobile command centers and support platforms for entire fleets of smaller ships. While motherships possess formidable direct firepower, their primary function involved providing logistical support, fighter deployment, and strategic coordination for extended military operations. They essentially functioned as portable military bases, capable of sustaining large-scale operations in hostile territory for extended periods. The Homvar Empire maintained one of the largest mothership fleets in the galaxy, 7 vessels in total. Given the enormous cost of construction and maintenance for such massive ships, this represented a significant military investment and demonstration of imperial power. Deploying an entire mothership against a species that had barely achieved spaceflight was universally regarded as massive overkill. The decision reflected both Humvar impatience and their determination to ensure absolute success in eliminating the human threat. While the Humvar had managed to conceal their initial reconnaissance and destroyer missions from Council oversight, deploying a mothership proved impossible to hide. By the time the Galactic Council detected the unauthorized military action, however, the vessel was already approaching the Sol system. This time, Humvar Command ordered constant communication with their deployed forces, demanding regular status reports and tactical assessments. First contact through violence. As the Humvar mothership approached Earth, it received a single transmission from humanity. The Humvar never bothered to translate this message during their approach, but post-conflict analysis revealed its content. Turn back now. The Humvar ignored this warning, but their tactical officers noted something unexpected in their sensor readings. Despite intelligence reports indicating that humanity possessed nothing more sophisticated than primitive satellites, they now detected a small fleet of spacecraft, crude by galactic standards but undeniably functional, positioned in defensive formations around Earth. The Humvar proceeded with their attack, confident that their superior technology would easily overwhelm human resistance. The human fleet was indeed gradually destroyed, though not without inflicting surprising damage and casualties on the Humvar forces. Human vessels demonstrated unexpected tactical creativity and apparent disregard for conventional safety protocols. Toward the battle's conclusion, the mothership began transmitting optimistic reports detailing their systematic victories over the technologically inferior human fleet. Their communications painted a picture of inevitable triumph. We have calculated that over 70% of their fleet has been either completely destroyed or severely damaged. It appears that humanity has resorted to utilizing their primitive rocket technology in suicidal attacks against our forces. Our shields are more than capable of withstanding any crude metal projectile attempting to ram our vessels. Victory is assured. Preparing to commence planetary termination procedures. This was the final transmission received from the mothership. Approximately 5 minutes later, the Humvar Empire began receiving multiple distress signals from the battle zone. Most were incomprehensible fragments, but several carried the same universal emergency designation. Of all the signals received, only one provided any explanation for the disaster. Mothership destroyed. Attempting retreat. This represented an intergalactic embarrassment for the Humvar Empire, but more importantly, it revealed a terrifying reality about human capabilities. Somehow, humanity had managed to completely destroy one of the galaxy's most powerful warships within minutes of engaging it directly. The implications were staggering. If humans could eliminate a mothership so quickly, their actual military capabilities far exceeded any previous estimates. In response to this debacle, the Galactic Council extended the exclusion zone around human space significantly. The Humvar Empire faced severe diplomatic consequences, finding themselves isolated and crippled in interstellar relations due to their unauthorized aggression and spectacular failure. The 20-year interlude. For approximately 20 years following the mothership incident, the galaxy maintained complete avoidance of human space. No attempts were made to establish communication with humanity, and the Humvar Empire, having lost one of their 7 motherships, refused to risk additional vessels against such a mysteriously powerful adversary. During this period, humanity apparently underwent rapid technological and military development, though the exact nature of their advancement remained unknown to galactic intelligence services. The period of isolation ended abruptly when Humvar border regions began receiving distress signals indicating they were under attack by unknown forces. The Humvar Empire mobilized their remaining military assets but quickly made a critical strategic decision. Rather than dispersing their forces across multiple defensive positions, they consolidated all 6 surviving motherships into a single massive fleet formation. This decision proved prescient when they realized the nature of the threat they faced. Emerging from what had previously been empty space, 3 additional motherships appeared, vessels that were immediately recognizable as human in origin despite their crude, blocky design characteristics. These human motherships were technologically primitive compared to HFY vessels, particularly in terms of weapon systems and maneuverability. However, what they lacked in sophistication, they compensated for with incredibly heavy armor plating that made them nearly impervious to conventional weapons fire. The realization struck both the HFY Empire and the broader galactic community simultaneously. Humanity had reverse-engineered captured HFY technology and was now taking offensive military action. The Great Battle. The clash between HFY and human mothership fleets became one of the largest single engagements in recorded galactic military history, measured purely by the number of capital ships involved and the scale of the battle space. The engagement continued for an extraordinarily long duration, with the battle zone eventually spanning vast areas of space as the massive vessels maneuvered for tactical advantage. The human ships, while improved significantly from their earlier crude designs, remained slower and less maneuverable than their HFY counterparts. Their heavy armor provided substantial protection but couldn't fully compensate for their tactical limitations. Initially, the battle appeared to follow predictable patterns. The more advanced HFY vessels began systematically wearing down their human opponents through superior mobility and concentrated firepower. Even the human motherships, despite their impressive armor, began showing significant battle damage after extended engagement. However, as human records later revealed, this engagement was never intended as a decisive battle from humanity's perspective. Instead, it served as a large-scale training exercise and field test for their newly developed strategic weapons. Once human command determined they had gathered sufficient tactical data, 6 projectiles launched simultaneously, 2 from each human mothership. 4 of these weapons found their targets, engulfing the HFY vessels in what humans euphemistically described as the power of the sun. The HFY managed to intercept 2 of the incoming projectiles with defensive fire, demonstrating that the weapons were not unstoppable. However, humanity immediately fired a second salvo. This time, only 1 weapon was successfully intercepted. With only 1 mothership remaining from their original fleet of 7, the surviving HFY forces attempted to retreat. However, their flight only made them more vulnerable to pursuit, and the final vessel was destroyed before it could escape the battle zone. With the majority of their fleet eliminated within minutes, humanity faced minimal resistance in occupying most of the HFY Empire's remaining territory. Their advance proved so rapid and overwhelming that organized resistance became impossible. The Conquest and Unexpected Mercy. The human advance culminated when they reached the HFY capital world. A new vessel, designated the Apollo *, landed on the planet's surface to accept the formal surrender of the HFY Empire. In a gesture that would become legendary throughout the galaxy, the human landing party performed what they described as an homage to their first steps beyond their home planet before accepting the unconditional surrender of the HFY Empire. Many observers expected humanity to follow conventional patterns of conquest, enslaving the defeated population, stripping valuable resources, and using captured territory as a staging ground for further expansion throughout the galaxy. Instead, humanity demonstrated remarkable restraint and unexpected mercy. They sought no punishment for the general population or even most government officials, focusing their justice efforts exclusively on the leadership directly responsible for the attacks on Earth. Following the formal surrender, humanity broadcast a message to the Galactic Council in numerous languages, including human languages and the primary languages of all major galactic civilizations. This message is broadcast on behalf of humanity. We have accepted the total and unconditional surrender of the HFY Empire to the United Nations Space Force, representing the United Nations and all of mankind. We do not seek war. Rather, we seek peace with all those willing to accept us as equals. However, we could not and will not tolerate deliberate attacks against our home world or attempt to destroy our civilization. The fate of the HFY Empire will be determined over the coming weeks. However, their leadership has already been removed from power. While we acknowledge that we are not signatories to the various intergalactic treaties that govern conduct between civilized species, we have been informed through Homvar prisoners of war the details of these agreements. We desire to try the former leadership of the Homvar Empire for violations of these treaties under galactic law. We fully accept the possibility that this request may be refused. However, know that if it is refused, we will proceed to try them under the laws and regulations established by human international law. We come in peace, but we are prepared for war. # Reconstruction and Rehabilitation. The Galactic Council accepted humanity's request for international tribunal proceedings, primarily because they had no desire to anger a species that had just eliminated 6 motherships within minutes of engaging them directly. However, what proved most remarkable was humanity's approach to governing their conquered territory. No Homvar territory was permanently annexed to human control. While some regions that had been conquered by the Homvar Empire were returned to their original inhabitants after negotiation with the relevant governments, none of the Homvar Empire's core worlds were claimed by humanity. Instead, humanity oversaw a complete governmental restructuring, replacing the militaristic imperial system with democratic institutions. This transition was managed gradually, with human advisors working alongside modern Homvar leaders to establish functional civilian government. Over time, through extensive interaction with humanity and particularly through human investment in rebuilding infrastructure damaged during the war, Homvar society began evolving away from its traditional warlike culture. With no aggressive government promoting militaristic values and with friendly trading partners providing economic alternatives to conquest, the Homvar population's hostile nature began diminishing. While some extremist elements persisted, they were relegated to the margins of Homvar political discourse. In the years following the conflict, humanity proved itself to be among the most cooperative and constructive members of the galactic community, much to the Galactic Council's relief. Earth achieved planetary unification shortly after the war's conclusion. Ironically, the external threat had provided the catalyst for ending humanity's internal divisions. Humanity eventually joined the Galactic Council as a full member state, bringing their unique perspectives and capabilities to interstellar governance. The Homvar Empire, under human guidance and support, gradually transformed into one of humanity's closest allies and trading partners. The former enemies developed a relationship based on mutual respect and shared commitment to peaceful resolution of conflicts. Eventually, humanity made a decision to decommission their strategic weapons, the devastating devices they had used to eliminate the Homvar motherships. These weapons were described by human officials as nearly destroying ourselves several times over during development. Through careful analysis of human historical records, most galactic historians believe these strategic weapons were nuclear devices, fusion or fission-based weapons whose operational principles were completely erased from all human documentation and digital networks. This information purge was apparently intended to prevent accidental rediscovery until such time as another species might independently develop similar weapons. # Conclusion. A people of peace, yet ready for war. What had originally been feared as a potential threat to galactic stability ultimately became one of the most stabilizing and beneficial additions to the interstellar community. Yet humanity simultaneously established itself as a faction more than willing to take decisive military action against anyone who would threaten them or their allies. Their message to the galaxy was clear. They preferred peace and cooperation, but they possessed both the capability and resolve to respond to aggression with overwhelming force. After observing humanity's actions and philosophy, many species throughout the galaxy adopted a phrase from humanity's first broadcast to the Galactic Council. This phrase has since become the standard description used throughout the galaxy when discussing humanity and their approach to interstellar relations. A people of peace, yet ready for war. This duality, the combination of genuine desire for peaceful coexistence with demonstrated willingness and ability to utterly destroy those who would threaten peace, has made humanity one of the most respected and influential civilizations in galactic politics. Their story serves as both inspiration and warning. that even the most peaceful civilizations must be prepared to defend themselves and their values, and that sometimes the greatest threats can be transformed into the most valuable allies through wisdom, restraint, and genuine commitment to justice and reconstruction rather than mere vengeance. The human approach to victory, focusing on rehabilitation rather than punishment, on building better systems rather than simply destroying enemies, has influenced galactic diplomatic and military doctrine significantly. Their example demonstrates that true strength lies not merely in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when destruction is necessary and when mercy and reconstruction serve better purposes. In this way, humanity's entry into the galactic community marked not just the addition of another member species, but the beginning of a new era in how civilizations approach conflict resolution and the building of lasting peace.